The first collection class we're going to talk about in this chapter is the array list. Array lists are very similar to arrays in that we can store elements sequentially and access those elements by indexed position. But a main difference between an array and array list is an array list is dynamic in that its size can grow and shrink, whereas the size of an array is static based on the size you declare when you create the array. So let's take a look at how to work with array lists in Java. We're going to call our program alist.java. Notice the capital L in list. First thing we need to do is import the Arraylist class. So we import java.util.arraylist. Our class is called alist. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is declare our array list. In this case, we're going to create an array list of 5 numbers, although the size, again, doesn't really matter. So we write array list, followed by the data type of the elements of the array list. Notice we have to use the class name for integer and not the primitive or built-in name. So it's capital I integer and not lowercase I int. We're going to call this array list grades, and then we call the constructor for the Arraylist class, like so. Once we've declared our array list, we're ready to add elements to it. And to do that, we use the add method. So all the add method takes is one argument, and that's the data you want to add to the array list. So bear with me while I add 5 grades. Now that we've added the elements to the array list, we're ready to access them. We access them via the method get. Get will take an indexed argument and will return the element at that indexed position. So let's write a for loop. Well, first of all, let's create a variable total to store the total of the grades. Then let's write a for loop. It starts at 0 and then runs 1 less than the size of the array list, which we can determine using a method called size. And that will return the number of elements in the array list. And we'll increment I by 1 each time. So the total is equal to the total plus the grade that we retrieve with I as an argument. So now we can compute the average by taking the total and dividing it again by the size of the array. Then let's print both the size of the array, so we can see that, and our average. All right, then let's close everything out. Save our file. And let's run it. There we go. So we see we have the size of your grades is 5 because there's 5 elements in the array list, and the average is 80. One of the advantages to using a collection class like the array list over the array is that we can use other means of accessing the elements rather than just a good old-fashioned for loop. For example, the for each loop will allow us to do the same thing a for loop does without having to worry about where to start or where to stop. The for each loop will determine that for us. Here's how the for each loop works. Starts with a for, then we have an open paren, followed by the declaration of a variable. That variable is followed by a colon, followed by the name of the array list. And so what we're saying here is we're saying for each grade in the array list grades, do something with that grade. So what we want to do with that grade is add it to the total, just like that. So the for each loop uses a built-in iterator to access each element of the array list in turn, from 100 to 90 to 80 to 70 to 60, and it knows exactly when to stop. So let's save the file, compile it again, and then run it. And you see that we get the same result. Finally, before we leave, I want to demonstrate how sizing of array lists works. let's remove one element from the array list. So we do that using a method called remove, which takes an index position and will remove the element at that index position. So now we can look at the new size of the array. So let's take a look. Save it. Compile and run. Now we see that the size is 4. Now let's add 2 more elements in. Let's add 60 back. And then let's add 50. And let's print out the size again. We'll change the heading on that a little bit to newer size. There we go. Save the file, compile, and then run. And you see that now the size is 6. So there are 2 main advantages to using array lists over arrays. One, we can take advantage of the for each loop to make it easier and safer to access all of the elements of our collection, in this case an array list. And we can use the fact that array lists are dynamic to remove elements that we don't need and add new elements in without worrying about whether or not we've gone beyond the size of the initially declared array, because array lists grow and shrink as you need them to. And with that, we've wrapped up this lesson on array lists.